My name is Simone Kennedy, and my presentation will be over African Americans and substance abuse. African American clients entering substance abuse treatment most often reported alcohol as their primary substance of abuse, followed by marijuana. Gender differences are evident, and women reported a broader range of substances as their primary substance abuse than men do. Overall, there is a higher percentage of the white population that uses compared to the percentage of users of the black population. National reports show that among African American adolescents, substance use is less prevalent than whites, but this trend changes in young and middle adulthood. Research indicates that blacks initiate use later and or continue their use further into adulthood than whites. They are somewhat more likely than whites to use illicit drugs and less likely than white Americans to use alcohol. They are more likely to use crack cocaine and less likely to use methamphetamine, inhalants, most hallucinogens, and prescription drugs. I also wanted to cover co-occurring disorders because many substance abusers use substances as self-treatment for self-medication for other disorders. So a number of studies have found that biases that result in African Americans being overdiagnosed for some disorders and underdiagnosed for others. African Americans are twice as likely to be diagnosed with a psychotic disorder as white Americans and more than 3 times as likely to be hospitalized for such disorders. These differences in diagnosis are likely the result of clinician bias in evaluating symptoms. Among persons with substance use disorder and co-occurring mood disorders and anxiety disorders, African Americans are significantly less likely than white Americans to have a co-occurring disorder recognized or receive services. African Americans who do receive services for co-occurring disorders are more likely to obtain them from substance abuse treatment programs than mental health programs, in turn may lead to less effective treatment. The causes that lead to substance abuse, and I just listed a couple causes: poverty, trauma, peer pressure, stress, rebellion, personality disorders, mental illness, PTSD, and mood disorders. And like I said in the previous slide, these co-occurring disorders are less likely to be recognized in African Americans than in the white population. These are some causes that are unique to the African American community or communities of people of color. So stress due to discrimination, low self-esteem due to internalized racism, misconception of self due to low ethnic identity. And some cultural influences: music, television, role models, and support systems. It has been reported that positive role models and strong support systems can counteract negative stereotypes, misrepresentation, and underrepresentation seen in the media. And negative role models and weak support systems can magnify those same issues in the media. Sometimes for African Americans, just getting to treatment is a challenge. So here are some problems that African Americans have getting to treatment. African American youth are less likely to seek treatment and complete treatment. So after they do start treatment, they have low retention rates. age increases the likeliness of participation in completion. There is still a stigma associated with mental illness in the black community. And with substance abuse, it's usually a moral failure that people use excessive amounts of drugs or alcohol. So that's still, very much something that we continue striving for, is reducing the stigma of mental health. African Americans are more likely to get treatment than blacks born in Africa or the Caribbean, and these reasons may be tied to acculturation. More acculturated African Americans and any other culture as well are more likely to seek treatment than populations that are new to the country or second generation immigrants. Historically, the mental health system has shown bias against African Americans, having been used in the past to control and punish them, which resulted in suspicions that still stand today that affects participation, attitudes, and outcomes of therapy. So the history of the mental health system is something that black people are still suspicious of, and that should be noted when treating people of African American descent, that there needs to be trust needs to be at the base of every client therapist relationship. Here are some factors that decrease or increase likeliness of substance use. Both males and females with more parental rules about substance use had significantly lower hazard of initiating alcohol and tobacco use. High levels of family cohesion reduce the hazard of marijuana use for females. With respect to cocaine and heroin use, factors that decrease are factors that increase the likeliness of substance abuse with respect to cocaine and heroin use was having physical and frequent discipline as a child and having a history of maternal substance abuse use increased the hazard of the entire group. Health disparities continue to exist for African Americans in terms of access to and quality of care, which can affect the number of health problems. Even though African Americans were less likely to use alcohol or more than the white population, they were more likely to have physical illness because of the use of alcohol. So cirrhosis in the liver was a problem more so for African Americans. Getting insurance and paying for health and mental health treatment is still an issue. And here I just wanted to address some stereotypes. Rap music has been said to influence drug use, but there's been There's not been any data to support that. Many studies conducted on the influence of rap music are done with little discrimination between subgenres, so result with generalized hip-hop and even at times urban music. So they group R&B, hip-hop, and soul into one category against pop music or country music or jazz or anything like that, and they try to come up with a result. So that's really just generalizing the population and not really seeing differences in the music. Rap music has been reported to be empowering by supplying a relatable narrative of being marginalized and living in impoverished communities. So when listeners listen to the music, they feel less alone and feel like they can have somebody to relate to. Scholars have also stressed the prominence of drugs and violence within inner cities, but that can lead outsiders to believe that the majority of residents would use drugs. But there are reports that show that the majority of residents are not using drugs, especially strong drugs like heroin, crack cocaine, and PCP. So it is important to note not to assume. Here are my references. At the bottom, there are 3 YouTube videos. I think the first is over internalized racism. The second, or third one, they are addressing, African Americans and substance abuse and the stigma that goes along with depression, getting clients to be treated for depression and anxiety disorder, and it also addresses just I think the other one is the war on drugs and how it affects the African American community. The Center for Abuse and Treatment, that was a really good article, and it also addressed other communities of color. And I got my statistics from alcoholrehab.com at the top, and the other two I borrowed a little bit from, but the Center for Abuse Treatment, Improving Cultural Competence was definitely an article worth reading.